Shambhu S. Kumaran, the Ambassador of India to the Philippines.
Nice to meet you all. As they say here, I think this is a Mayang Apon, right? Please.
All right, now everyone, please settle down and take your seats. Breathe and take a moment. Now, Sir Shambhu, His Excellency, do you have a message for our visitors of the media today, sir?
Thank you very much. Let me begin by wishing everyone again a very wonderful afternoon. And thank you all for joining this interaction with regard to the India Business Roadshow that we are hosting in Iloilo. And I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Fulbert Wu and his team at the PCCI Ilo chapter, and begin by thanking him and his team for partnering the Embassy of India in this very important endeavor to build stronger business relations between India and the Philippines, and in particular Visayas and Iloilo. The India Business Roadshow is an outreach effort that we in the Embassy in Manila conceptualized in partnership with the India Business Forum, whose president, Mr. Dilip Tiwari, and various members and office holders are also here with us for you to speak with them later today. It's an effort to try and take the conversation about economic diplomacy out of the capital into the regions. And today, I'm very delighted to be here in this wonderful city, historic city of Iloilo, and to convey to all of you greetings from India. And as you would know, we have a very broad-ranging business delegation in terms of the sectors that are represented. And this is the first business roadshow, India business show that we're doing in the Visayas. So I'm particularly happy that we're doing this in Iloilo. We've had similar events earlier in Baguio, in Davao, in Cagayan de Oro, and most recently in Lawag. So we would really like to demonstrate through this wide-ranging engagement our effort to build partnerships with various geographies in the Philippines. Because definitely a lot of the economic momentum in the Philippines is in its very dynamic regions. And some of you may be aware, India is today the world's 5th largest economy. And in this decade, we are confident that we would be the world's 3rd largest economy after the United States and China. And this growth story is one of fundamental transformation from a country that has been predominantly agricultural to a country that today possesses cutting-edge capabilities in various fields of technology, from digital technologies to healthcare, to space and various other areas. So we'd like to really try and bring that dynamism that is there in India and showcase that too. And through you in the media, we'd like to pass the message that India is interested in a much stronger, much deeper, and more dynamic partnership with the Philippines, and we want to explore all possible pathways by which we can build this partnership. As some of you would also know, this city has been hosting several Indian BPM companies. The BPM sector has been always a very key element of the India-Philippines economic partnership. And a lot of the companies, and I have Mr. Pushkar Mishra here from HGS, who's one of the pioneers, the pioneer in fact, to bring in IT BPM companies into the city. And many others have followed suit, and it's a very strong presence of Indian and Indian managed companies in this city. But the idea is that we build on the IT BPM success and explore multiple other areas of engagement. I'd like to also place in record our sincere appreciation for Governor Defensor and Mayor Trenyes for their very strong and active support, without which this engagement wouldn't have come to fruition. So we're very, very thankful for their leadership and their support. With that brief statement, I am available for any questions once again. And let me also, before I forget, also highlight, we have in this roadshow added an additional element, which is that we have an organization of Indian Women in Enterprise, which is, as the name suggests, Indian women entrepreneurs and professionals based in Manila, led by Ms. Binadwani and Ms. Priya Murugesan, who's here this afternoon. They are introducing what I feel is a very, very meaningful initiative by Indian business called Tech to Transform, which is essentially, very, very briefly put, an effort to mentor and guide women-led MSMEs in the Philippines using the experience that the Indian entrepreneurs and businesses and professionals have, to try and get these small women MSMEs to access funding, to access better business practices, models, etc. So this is really a very meaningful additionality to the India Business Roadshow that we are bringing this afternoon, this edition. Thank you very much, and at your disposal.
Thank you as well, Mr. Ambassador, His Excellency. Now, when you said that India was the 5th largest economy and striving to be the 3rd in the coming years, I hope our connections with the Iloilo city will help you and us together grow. Growth is one of the things that we love here in Iloilo. Let's take a moment to acknowledge the presence of our friends from the IBF. Sir Dilip Tiwari, I will say. Sir Nishikant Singh, our councilor. Sir Turan Singh, also our councilor. And Dilip Tiwari, again. Yes, sir. And Sir Pravir. Hi, sir. Do you know? All right. Also, I'd like to remind everyone that tomorrow we also have another event for the 31st of May. All right. Now, does anyone have any questions asked directed to the Indian ambassador?
Hi, good afternoon, Ambassador. My name is Joey Marzan. I'm from the local Daily Guardian, and I'm also correspondent of the Philippine Daily Inquirer here in Iloilo City. I just wanted to ask, what makes Iloilo, in your view, what makes Iloilo City attractive not just to Indian businesses but to India in general?
Well, I would say that Iloilo is very, very important in its location and positioning in this. It's like in the center of the Philippines, if you will. It's a city that we notice has been growing quite dynamically. It has a good visionary leadership. And it's a city with which Indian enterprises are beginning to form a partnership. So we do feel that there's energy and there's potential for greater engagement, and I'm aware that the people of Iloilo have always played a very strong role in the Philippines in general. So really is something that we'd like to reach out and to tell the people of Iloilo and the businesses of Iloilo that there is this big new country that wants to, not new, we've been very old friends, but some of those connections were lost along the way due to various historical factors. So we need to reach out and build these bonds afresh. So that's the message.
Another question. What is your expectation of tomorrow's business roadshow here?
So we have multiple objectives with these road shows. The first, as I said, was to reach out to very active and dynamic regions in the Philippines, to explore the potentiality in these regions, which is generally untapped otherwise, because a lot of the activity is very capital centered. Secondly, we want to showcase the wide-ranging capacities of Indian business, and the fact that Indian businesses are already playing such an important role in the Philippines, from sectors like healthcare, where we are your primary health security provider with this range of affordable medicines that we supply to the Philippines. In the IT BPM sector, Indian companies are employing close to 200,000 Filipinos. We're one of the largest foreign employers. In areas like agriculture, where we also have a lot of companies here, we're providing very critical inputs in the agricultural value chain. I could go on, but I'm just giving you a few examples of the sectors where Indian business is contributing very effectively. So that's the second primary sort of objective, to showcase what India is doing, can do. And obviously, through this process of information sharing, it also link very actively with chambers like PCCI and various other bodies that are there, business bodies, and directly with businesses, to try and forge networks and connections and conversations that could lead to business deals in the future.
Thank you so much, sir.
Anybody else with a question for our Indian ambassador?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Cornalena of the Philippine News Agency Government Media. Sir, first, I would like to ask your impression of Iloilo City. We learned that it's your first time to visit this wonderful city of ours, sir.
Well, the first impression from the air was that it was extremely green, verdant, like much of the Philippines. Secondly, I could see that the city is being built up. It's really a city that you could see is growing, it's dynamic. And I really have spent only a few hours there, but my initial impressions is that this is a city with a lot of potential and a lot of promise.
There's, sir. You mentioned about IDBPM, the health industry, but is there any specific sector that this forum or this investment would like to focus on, and how many Indian businesses are participating in tomorrow's roadshow?
What's the updated number, Nishikant? How many companies?
So we are total around 35 businesses.
We have nearly 30 Indian businesses participating. And obviously, IT BPM is a very strong area. Healthcare is a very strong area, pharmaceuticals. Agriculture is a strong area. We also have companies in automobiles. We have healthcare companies as opposed to pharmaceuticals. We have companies in the agriculture sector that are doing things like seeds, but also doing things like pumps in the irrigation side. It's a very broad range of companies that are present here. I'm sure we can share a list so you could have a sense, and I do encourage you to have some conversations with some of them so you could. And I noticed that some young startups have also joined us. So I haven't had a conversation even myself to catch up with all of them, but one of the things that we noticed was that there was a lot of enthusiasm for Iloilo. So maybe you should ask them also the same question, why Iloilo? I'm sure you get some interesting answers.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else have a question? All right, please state your name and organization.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon. I'm RM Palantas from Panay News. So you have mentioned earlier, sir, that there is a strong economic partnership between India and the Philippines. So what do you think, sir, are the factors which strengthen the relationship between these two countries?
Thank you, and it's a very important question. I think at the heart of it, it's the fact that both our countries are growing quite rapidly as economies. That we have very young populations. Demographically speaking, our median age is less than 30. And we do have a sort of trajectory of upward growth that is very, very encouraging for both countries to look at. We're both Asian, Indo-Pacific democracies. We share similar values. Our people have great affection for each other. And there is a lot of cultural and other history that we can look back upon. That's on the one side. On the other hand, we have strong support at the political leadership level to take this relationship forward. As I did mention, the Indo-Pacific is a new strategic area. And here, the Philippines is centrally located. And India is a very key actor in the Indo-Pacific. And we'd like to build a very robust partnership with the Philippines cutting across sectors. And this was something that came through very clearly when Prime Minister Mr. Modi of India and President Mr. Marcos had a telephone conversation last year in August. And they did reaffirm at the highest political level their great desire to see this relationship being taken to a higher level. We did talk about the business logic, but I'm just giving you the larger context in which this relationship is important to both of us.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
This seems to be the question table.
Yes. I like it. It's the news reporter.
Hi, sir. JP Verbas of the State Run Radyo Pilipinas. Sir, maybe with all these objectives in mind, do you have the timeline as to when will we realize the product of this partnership?
So, the India-Philippines partnership is already a partnership that is in progress. It's not a new partnership. I want to stress this. But what we want to do is to discover new pathways and impart new energy into this partnership. Last year, for example, for the first time, we crossed about $2.5 billion in bilateral trade. We've had extremely broad-ranging investments from India into the Philippines, and we've also had encouragingly a lot of investments from the Philippines going into India. We do have a very strong government-to-government engagement. We have worked on multiple agreements, one of which we hope to conclude soon on financial technology, to bring in some of the path-breaking innovations in India in terms of service delivery by governments and also digital payments, digital settlements. So the timeline for this, obviously from our side, is now, but all of these conversations do take time to deliver, so we don't have a set timeline, but as I said, we want to provide this platform to build more conversations and connections. And in due course, over the short to medium term, we've seen with other conversations that we've had in other cities that the output is actually quite quick. Some of the conversations lead to contracts and agreements in the space of a few months. So I would hope that some of the businesses represented here today could actually be announcing additional investments. I know some of them are actively planning, have on the drawing board investment plans for Iloilo. I'm sure that these will come in due course and announcement will happen.
Now that is exciting news. Time will tell when the investments of both Iloilo and India will flower. Now, sir has another question? All right.
Sir, just a follow-up. Sir, from Iloilo, do you consider other places investment besides the partner?
So at this stage, we are looking at the Visayas. We start, as I say, in Iloilo, but we'd also like to do event in Cebu in due course. But the fact that we did choose Iloilo was deliberate because we felt that larger cities get more attention, but somehow the cities that are doing a lot of interesting work are not getting engaged enough. So that was the idea that made us choose Iloilo as the first Visayan destination for this business roadshow.
All right, that's a nice answer. Any more questions? Yes, Miss Andrea.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon and welcome to Iloilo. You mentioned earlier that India is the fifth largest economy as of now and aspiring to be the third largest. So, what do you think is the success or the secret to this success, and that our country, Philippines, may emulate? Thank you.
That's a very nice question, and I'd like to answer this in two or three different ways. I think one of the big takeaways from India, which the Philippines also has, is its democracy. That our decision making is participatory, consensual. Incidentally, India is also now the most populous country in the world, having overtaken China. So we are the largest country. And that leads me to the second point, which is demography, which is that we are both young country. India is a very young country, and so is the Philippines. And youthful demographics always make for very powerful demand. So my Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, talks about the 3Ds of democracy, demographics, and demand. And these, to my mind, reinforce each other. And the Philippines is exactly maybe in a similar position with its very young and academically oriented population. I'm sure that with the right amount of skills and educational impetus, the Philippines and India are already seeing similar patterns of growth. And we hope that by bringing the businesses from both countries closer, we can share experiences with each other and grow together.
That's a very nice answer, sir. Demography and what's the other one?
Democracy.
Democracy. That's very insightful. Makes you think. What part of the demography, like what age, what social status would help grow the businesses here in Iloilo? And I like that answer. Very thought-provoking answer. Now, does anyone else have any questions? Yes, Ms. Shi?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sheila. I'm from Iloilo Blogger Society. So, at this point, what are the main challenges and opportunities you're currently facing to successfully build this business landscape with Iloilo City?
I can't identify any challenges at the moment, but the challenges, if I can put it that way, the lack of awareness and information about each other. I think that's exactly what we want to try and address by doing this event. Because I do sense that broadly there's not enough awareness in the Philippines about the remarkable transformation that's happening in India, and we are next door to you, just across the ocean, if you will. And the oceans are now no longer dividing us, they're bridges that connect us. So really what we'd like to encourage, and through you and through your blogs, please convey to all your young Filipino friends, do travel to India, do look at India. India is a wonderful culture, it's a civilization, great food, wonderful dresses, cuisines. It's really an area that, I don't want you to stop looking westward, but please also look at India. Because you look west, you look to Japan, Korea, etc. But India is also growing, and India is also very dynamic and active. So please add India to your, shall we say, menu.
Next question, sir. When it comes to sustainability and corporate social responsibility, what do you have in mind or plans to bring to Iloilo as we go along the way?
One of the remarkable things about Indian businesses, especially Indian businesses that have been operating in the Philippines, operating abroad, is that they do bring a very, very strong ethical practices, and they also have been very, very focused on, I would say, the right way of doing business. This is quite in contrast to some other partners who might bring in unsustainable levels of debt, whose policies may not be ecologically very sensitive, etc. So if one thing about Indian business is we can rest assured that we'll be not just a productive partner, but also a responsible partner.
Thank you.
Beautiful answer. A responsible partner. Nice. Any other questions from the crowd? Yes, sir, Ted.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. I'm Ted Albino. I'm a freelance writer and blogger. I would like to know Iloilo's economic profile as four sectors that are strong. You've mentioned about it, slightly about culture. One is tourism, health, education, and micro, small, medium enterprises demonstrated strong profiling post-pandemic. Are there elements of discussion that will be brought into these four sectors tomorrow?
Absolutely. I think I did mention about the MSME connection that we're trying to build, and specifically with women entrepreneurs and the IV initiative, the Tech to Transform initiative, which ran last year quite successfully. Did mentor, Priya, correct me, about 30? About the, women-led MSMEs. And we hope tomorrow we'll have 26 local women-led MSMEs to have this conversation as to how they could scale up, how they could access finance, how they should market, how they should do HR, how they should do finance. It's a wonderful package that, and drawing upon the experience of many Indian entrepreneurs, some of them self-made, some of them have worked in big corporations and now run their own companies. So it's really a eclectic mix of experiences that will be shared. So definitely the MSME box we would tick emphatically. Tourism, a very interesting question you asked. One of the big efforts that we're trying to do is to improve tourism in both ways between India and the Philippines. India is now one of the largest outbound tourism countries in the world. We are a big source market. And I've had a lot of discussion with Secretary Frasco, who's an outstanding administrator. And she's been pushing very actively for greater tourism from India into the Philippines. And I do hope that with direct flight connectivity and with the introduction of an easier visa system for the Philippines, we'll be able to see many, many more Indian tourists visit many of the interesting areas in the Philippines, including areas in and around Iloilo. So tourism, we don't have a specific focus on tomorrow, but this is something that we're working on at the policy level to try and expand. What are the other two sectors you mentioned?
Education and health.
Healthcare, really, I would say, if I were to just identify two sectors, two legs on which the India-Philippines relationship walks on right now, I'd say ITBPM and healthcare. So definitely healthcare is in the core sort of areas of interest. If you have somebody here from Nephro Plus, an Indian company which has just been here 2 years, they do dialysis centers. And they've scaled up from 0 to 24 in 2 years, so you can imagine the speed of growth. But we have a lot of Indian, shall we say, entrepreneurs leveraging new technologies to make healthcare more affordable. This is one of the things that India has really pioneered and perfected, is how do you make good quality healthcare affordable. This is not just pharmaceuticals, because that, of course, we do a lot of generics and we got the prices down. But one other example I'll give you was there was a launch about 2 months ago of a AI-driven breast cancer diagnostic tool developed by a woman technologists from India, and which brings down the cost of diagnosis from about 3 to 5,000 pesos to about 300 pesos. So that's the kind of disruptive change that Indian technology-enabled entrepreneurship is bringing to India. We'd like to bring some of that across to the Philippines. Agriculture is an area I think which also is of interest to this region. You didn't mention specifically because it's not in the city itself, not so much of a focus, but I think in the province, definitely an area of focus. And definitely also for the national government at the very top level, an area of focus. And I'm very happy that we have a lot of agriculture sector companies also participating in this roadshow.
All right, thank you, sir. Now, you mentioned earlier that you can scale up on tomorrow's topics, how to scale up businesses. That is something a lot of small-time businesses don't know how to do, and I think it would benefit them a lot to attend tomorrow. Now, does anyone else have any more questions? You have one?
My name is Casey. I'm a local content creator here. So you've talked about tourism and education, and I'm a graduate of tourism. So I was just wondering, does India have any exchange programs for students? Because when I was studying, we would travel outside the country and we would experience it firsthand. So I think it would be a good opportunity for the younger people here in the Philippines to experience India. So I was wondering if you guys have exchange programs that maybe India and Philippines could work with.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have exactly the kind of program that you have in mind, but we do have invitations to various groups of people to visit India. I'm not sure you're aware, we do have a very active training program which is primarily aimed at government but could also include people like you, which is fully funded by the Indian government called iTech. So there are programs there on digital content creation, for example, which could interest somebody like you. So we do have vehicles like that. We do a lot of scholarships, India ASEAN scholarships. There are also scholarships at multiple levels in the education sector. So this is another area where young Filipinos can travel to India. And one of the things that I'd like to see is that when Indian companies expand here, they will obviously get many of their employees to visit India, whether it's an in-house training for business trips, things like that. That will expand the envelope of knowledge that is there. And when we talk of education, I just wanted to go back to the previous question to say that there's of course the formal school and college education, but there's a lot of, in the IT BPM sector, there's a lot of talk about skills. And the way this is happening is that there is a lot of reskilling and upskilling that is happening. And that's happening within the companies, and Indian companies are doing extremely well in terms of lifting up the skill levels of a lot of their employees. But they're also doing now scaling at the basic level, which is that they do take kids who are from college, then give them the basic skills training. So education is embedded in the IT BPM story in a very deep and meaningful way. And as technology becomes more powerful as a factor in this industry, this sort of training will become more and more important. I think Indian companies are ready and willing to do more to get their Filipino workforce future ready.
Thank you.
That was a beautiful answer, sir. Now, it's nice to imagine having local people go to India, promote the tourism of India to the Filipino people. It's a different vibe to the audience. That's a beautiful idea to take. Now, does anybody else have a question from the crowd? Let's go, Zach.
So, hello, good afternoon. My name is Zach of Trendy.ph. So, given that HGS and WNS have already established their businesses in Iloilo City, can we expect that Indian companies will choose to establish their main headquarters here as well? Or they are more inclined to put up subsidiaries or branch offices?
I think it'll be a variety of formats in which they'll engage. What I get the sense from the Indian IT BPM sector is that, by the way, the Indian IT BPM sector, the Indian companies among the IT BPMs have can take their pat on their back because they are one of the pioneers to take out the BPM industry to the regions in the Philippines. So there is definitely greater interest from a business perspective. I sense to open up new centers where they can operate. There is a talent issue which helps if they move out to various places. But then obviously Iloilo as a big educational center has a degree of attractiveness. The idea is that we should have a good enough pool of people who are employable and who can be retained to develop the sector. So yes, there will be, I would assume, more new openings and potentially subsidiaries and partnerships as are required to make the business work. But what I don't doubt is the commitment and the interest on the part of the Indian IT BPM sector to look at Iloilo as a center for their growth in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, anybody else from the crowd with a question? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Cedric from Shambhu, Iloilo. So, aside of the economic aspects, what are other partners to be pursued of the Indian government?
So, as I was mentioning, this is a very broad-based partnership. The economic and business sector is the driver, because that makes the relationship, I would say, meaningful to the maximum number of people in a very direct way. But we have, as I was mentioning, a strong political dialogue. We speak to each other diplomatically. We have a strong diplomatic dialogue on what's happening in our region and in the world and how it affects us as developing countries and how we can cope with some of the changes that are happening. That's a very active process of engagement. And we have dialogue at multiple levels in various joint working groups, whether it's to do with agriculture, with health and tourism. We have just earlier this year signed an agreement to do Indian grant-funded development projects in the Philippines. This is a new initiative that we are doing, where we hope to do small projects, and I was very happy to be able to sign this with Secretary Avalos. This agreement we hope to implement over this summer, and this year is when the first projects will be chosen, and I'm sure that we will look at some projects. The DILG will open up this process for even cities like Iloilo can look at these projects. We're also in active conversation with the Department of Transportation and the Department of Finance to pick up a large infrastructure project for implementation in the Philippines on the basis of an Indian soft loan. This conversation has been developing. We haven't reached a definitive stage yet, but it's a very active and very, shall we say, focused discussion on how we can identify one or two large projects. Some of you might know that the Shambhu airport was developed by an Indian company, GMR, and there are other infrastructure projects that could be very well implemented, whether it's in the highways or railways or airports, ports, all these sectors. We could have Indian companies who are interested. So we're looking actively at the developmental side, A, at small development projects, but B, also at the big infrastructure projects. So that's the other dimension. The third area that I'd like to highlight is that we have a growing engagement on technology. India is one of the strongest actors in the technology sector worldwide. We have established very, very effective tools of governance using digital technologies. And we'd like to share some of those experiences with the Philippines. and therefore we have negotiated the setting up of a joint working group on financial technology, which we hope can be signed very shortly. We also have a active engagement on defense and security issues. We do have a lot of conversations. We've been training a lot of Philippines defense forces, and last year we were happy to see the first Philippines Coast Guard officials take part in training in India. We have conversations around equipment and capabilities. We just completed last month earlier this month, the ASEAN-India military exercise. We were very happy to see the Philippine Navy ships take part in that exercise. And we'd like to work towards bilateral Navy exercises between our countries. So and the most important thing for me as a representative of the world's largest democracy is that the people-to-people relationship is very strong and very effective. There's a lot of active cultural engagement. There are multiple Filipinos and Indians don't just meet each other in Philippines and India. We meet each other in multiple geographies. We even meet each other on ships that are across the high seas, because we provide a lot of the manpower, the human resources for the world maritime industry. So it's really a very positive conversation among representatives of Asia's two proud democracies and young and emerging economies. So to answer your question, it's a very broad canvas, not just economics and trade commerce.
All right, thank you, sir. I'm excited to see the growth of India will be bringing here. A decade and a half ago, these buildings weren't here and there was growth. I'm excited to see what India can bring for the Iloilo city. Anybody else have a question? Now, I have a question for you, sir. So we're talking about investments of connecting India and Iloilo.
Is this part of the media conference or is it over yet?
I'm just really curious.
I'm just wondering in the media and one in PCI. Okay, please.
I would love seeing Iloilo grow. I've been here my whole life, and to see it grow more, I'd like to be a part of it. How does one business connect to your business in helping grow the connection?
Well, as you rightly said, and I was talking to one of my colleagues, I think Pravir was mentioning to me that he came here 6 years ago, and on this road there were no buildings. But he also said something more interesting. He said if you want to look for space for your office, it's not available right now. So really what we are looking at is that we've reached a certain stage of growth in terms of what can be achieved, but this can be scaled up to a larger set of similar projects. So the important thing is that we begin to take each other more earnestly, and we believe in the potential for the India-Philippines partnership. And I think that at the end of the day is the core message that we'd like to bring through this seminar, that we need to believe in this partnership, and the partnership will yield results.
All right, thank you, sir. Now, thank you everyone for your time here today. Aside from our ambassador from India, if you have any questions from all our other investors from India, the media may ask them as well. Does anyone have any questions pertaining to healthcare, education, tourism, or the likes? The floor is open for any questions you have in mind. Okay.
I'd like to also, if I'm overstepping are all the media invited for some of the discussions tomorrow, the sessions? Yeah, so please do come tomorrow to attend, and there'll be a lot of sector-specific discussions where you can get greater insights into. But please do have informal conversations, even if you don't want to have formal questions with all these, I would say, extremely. One of the things that I really am struck, because I've lived in multiple countries, is that whenever I speak to Indians living in the Philippines, I'm struck by how positive they are about the Philippines and the partnership with India and the Philippines. And I think this positivity is a treasure. We should cherish it because, you speak to many people, they'll say 3 positive things, but also then 3 negative things to balance it out. But this is a really positive story. I think hats off also to the Filipinos because you do make it a very welcoming place to do business and to invest in. You're a very welcoming country for businesses. And I think with chambers like the one that we led by Mr. Wu, the readiness with which you looked at this partnership and partnered with my very dynamic colleague, Mr. Nishikant Singh, to bring this sort of event to fruition. I think we really have a wonderful event. Looking forward to it tomorrow. Thank you.
Yes, we're looking forward for tomorrow's event. Tomorrow's event will be talking about the IT, pharma and healthcare, FMCG, personal care, engineering and automotives, renewable wastewater, solid waste management, agriculture, irrigation and chemicals, innovative tech solutions, IDES. So please, if you have any interest in these topics or businesses or industries, please give your time tomorrow, drop on by and listen to our speakers tomorrow.
And if you don't have interest, please get interested.
Yes, get interested. Yes, anyone can come in at 1:30, register. It starts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At Marriott. Yes. Anybody else want to say anything for our ambassador for India? I'd like to say thank you, sir, for sharing your time with us. I appreciate you coming here and enjoying the city. Although it's raining, it's still an amazing view of the business park. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's all take a group picture with our ambassador.
First, all media guys will have a picture of media with the ambassador.
Or I think the ambassador will stand here and
yes. Everybody can. You join us also. First, media, all the media can join. They'll have a good picture of media.
Yes, some people stop pictures. That's it.
Ay,